Happy Easter, everyone. Welcome to episode 30 of the BBL show. I am Jay Marriott. He is Drew Lasker. Mr. Lasker, did the Easter Bunny leave you any treats?
I mean, not me in particular, but the kids had a good one. But besides that, this is not about me, Jay. This is about you today. So Corey, Johnny, hit that music and let's get it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. And that is a 40th birthday. And I just want to say to our listeners out there, I appreciate you, man. For those that don't know, you work full time. You're a family man, you're a husband, you're a father, you're juggling all these things. And then on top of that, you're committed to this show. You write the show notes for this show. You come up with the creative ideas. So, I wouldn't want to have anyone else in that seat, man. And I appreciate you, and happy 40th birthday to you, brother.
Oh, thanks, man. Respect. I appreciate that. And little sing song as well. I'm feeling good. Monday morning.
You're looking good, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's the most important thing, isn't it? If I'm still looking okay, not too haggard, then I'm happy. I don't care what age I am. Right, let's get on. Thanks to Marty B of the Worcester Wolves for joining us on the weekly picks. A healthy 9-2 for me this week. Cross leg, sip some coffee, make some satisfied noises.
You're too good, man.
A good week. This week, we welcome Manchester Giants' new head coach, Lloyd Gardner, talking Barking Abbey, coaching the Royals, and chasing the playoffs. We have the scores and top performers, player of the week nominees, hot topics with an MVP flavor, the Lasker Lookback. But first, your social media spy, it's the Marriott Minute. Okay, intrigued me league news. Last night, Leicester Riders welcome the General, Gino Crandell, and big man Mo Walker back from injury and just in time for the playoffs. Scary prospect. Speaking of General Gino, an awesome shout out this week from NBA prospect and Gonzaga star guard Jalen Suggs as he gave love to the vets that shaped him. We go 3 in a row for Riders as former guard J.R. Blount has just been announced assistant coach for Iowa State University. Congrats, J.R. Where is where? Lions' sixth man has been missing with no mention from the club the last 2 games. He has been out and also very quiet on the socials. Keen to hear an update as this closely followed some in-house drama last week. Christian Keeling, now a former Glasgow Rock, giving love to his coach, a coaching legend. Coach Roy Williams of North Carolina announced his retirement and officially left us feeling old. Salute to one of the game's greatest coaches. Okay, Engage Me, our very own Kieran Achara is signed up for the Stirling Marathon in October for the Scottish Association of Mental Health. Super proud to know this guy, a big commitment for a great cause. Listeners, what do you think? Should I get up there and join him? Did you catch my brother and co-host, Mr. Lasker, in his Wolf of Wall Street photo shoot? I almost always make fun of him, but today he gets nothing but love for the effort he goes to get out of his comfort zone and embrace diversity in his projects. Hardest worker in any room, right here. We had the honor this week of making it into the GOAT himself, Daniel Routledge's famous analytics spreadsheet to show the reality of our weekly picks. Some interesting stats, lots of bias, but only one thing I love to see, and that is the healthy lead that I am currently sitting on. Okay, amuse me. This is all April Fools right here. My 3 favorites. London Lions announcing the arrival of LiAngelo Ball finally. Sheffield Sharks head coach announcing he is coming back as player coach. And then Glasgow Rock signing High School Musicals Troy Bolton, a historic signing that appeared to have fell through due to visa issues. Too soon? And that wraps up this week's Marriott Minute. I'm always watching.
Great minute as usual, birthday boy, and we got some 6 degrees of separation there with Christian Keeling and Roy Williams, and then also Gino Crandell and Jalen Suggs. So great things happening in the British Basketball League. So great stuff there, Jay. But we move along to scores and ballers of the week. We kick off the week on Tuesday at Morningside Arena, where the Flyers were fighting for their playoff lives. The desperation paid off as they granted Coach Andreas his 101st win in the BBL, winning 80-54 and holding the Riders to their fewest points since 2009. Eric Lockett finishes with 18 points and 9 rebounds. Wednesday night, we go to the nation's capital, where the entire league is glued into this one after rumors swirling outside of the London camp. Well, we can put that all to bed as DeAndre Liggins suited up, but this was the Dirk Williams show as he was hotter than fish grease as the Lions won comfortably over the Scorchers, 109-90. Dirk cools off Surrey with 35 points. Friday, we go to Virtual Motors Arena for the Sky doubleheader feature. First on the menu, Sharks and Lions, as Lions take care of business early, winning 93-81 minus Kevin Ware as Dirk Williams makes his MVP push, finishing with 25 points. For the entree of the doubleheader, and Glasgow step into Virtual Motors with a lot of question marks around the league of how they would fare without their Americans. And they put on a display that Rocks fans can be proud of as they battled tough, but ultimately falling short 98-78 as Cortez Edwards tries his best to sneak into the MVP race, finishing with 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 steals. Down in Surrey, Plymouth continue their dominance over the Scorchers, 98-90. Ashley Hamilton starting to gain a little confidence, finishing with 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. Playoff implications over in Bristol as the Flyers host the Wolves. Kimball, a.k.a. Fresh, steps up big as the Wolves still missing Brandon Anderson, finishing with 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. We move to Plymouth, where the Raiders host the Phoenix on a rare Saturday fixture at the Pavilions. McGill and the crew continue to roll as they hold off a late charge from Jalen Hayes and the boys as Ashley Hamilton builds momentum in his form, finishing with 19 points and 9 rebounds. Easter Sunday in the BBL, we hop down to Surrey to where the Scorchers keep their playoff hopes alive with a huge win and the head-to-head advantage over the Newcastle Eagles, winning 87-67 with Tony Hicks starring, finishing with 16 points and 11 assists. Bristol Flyers take the long road trip to Glasgow where they hold tight of that 8th spot, taking care of business 87-79, and Josh Wilshere controls this game with 18 points and 4 assists. We take you to Worcester where the London look to get revenge, ending a 4-day road trip for the Lions. 4 seconds to go in regulation as Kimball Fresh tries to shake loose from DeAndre Liggins, but the Defensive Player of the Year candidate says, I picked up James Harden full court, so this is light work, son. As the Lions take care of business in overtime, Orlando Parker finishes with 22 points and 5 rebounds. Finally in Manchester, where the magic number is 4 for the Leicester Riders. That number is now 3 after the Riders make a statement introducing Gino Crandell and Mo Walker back in the lineup, defeating the Giants 90-87. William Lee finishing with 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks, joining our Player of the Week nominees. And that wraps up this week's league action.
Thanks, Mr. Lasker, for the scores and top performers. As always, Player of the Week nominees. Here we go. We have 4 great picks for you, starting with London Lions, Dirk Williams going off for 35 points and also adding 3 rebounds to a 31 index. Newcastle Eagles, Cortez Edwards, always flirting around the trip dub, 25, 8 and 5 for a 36 index. Surrey Scorchers, star guard Tony Hicks in there for 16 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists, double-double, 26 index. And then finally, last but not least, Leicester Riders, athletic high-flying big man William Lee with 19 points, 9 rebounds and 2 assists for a 29 index. Make sure you get your votes in on all the socials, and we will see that pick midweek. Remember, 4 on the board to choose from. Okay. Time to tone it down a little bit and feel those velvety tones of the Lasker Lookback.
In this episode of the Lasker Lookback, we dive into the MVP race as it heats up with 4 weeks remaining in the regular season, which looks like a 4 to 5 man race. I look into how much winning the league plays into winning the actual MVP award. Going back to the 1999-2000 season, 10 out of 20 of those winners come from league winners. Going back to 2018-2019 season, Justin Robinson wins the award as his London Lions wins the league. 2012-13 season, Drew Sullivan does it for the Leicester Riders. Captain Joe wins the award in 2011-2012 season for the Newcastle Eagles. Also in 2008-2009, Trey Moore also for the Newcastle Eagles. And finally, Leonard Stewart, remember that big fella, does it for the Eagles as well in 2007-2008. Brian Dux wins the award, a co-MVP award that year, as Guildford Heat won the league in 2006-2007. 2005-2006, the clean sweep year for the Newcastle Eagles. Drew Sullivan takes home the award. 2004-2005 season, Trey Moore does it for the Chester Jets. 2003-04 season, Jerry Williams does it for the Brighton Bears. And finally, 1999-2000 season, Tony Dorsey wins the award after his Manchester Giants wins the North Division, as the league used to be split up into 2 winners, a North Division and a South Division. But as the magic number is 3 for the Leicester Riders, Riders fans can get excited as Gino Crandell has a 50% chance of winning the award if the Riders can take care of league business. But for the Manchester Giants fans, making the playoffs is the only thing on their mind. With 6 games remaining and 4 losses worse than the 8th place Flyers, qualifying seems very unlikely. If somehow, some way, the Giants can sneak into the playoffs with their new man in charge, I think it's safe to say that Lloyd Gardner should be your 2020-2021 MVP if he can somehow steer the Giants to the big dance. And that is your Lasker Lookback.
Thanks for that, Mr. Lasker. Great lead in, as always, to our guest this week, former director of basketball for Barking Abbey, former London City Royals head coach, and now new head coach of the Manchester Giants, Coach Lloyd Gardner.
Good morning and welcome to the show, Coach. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Thanks for having me, guys.
I actually haven't gotten an opportunity to meet you, so this is a first. So welcome to the show. Nice to meet you, Coach.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we'll see each other on Friday too. So
yeah,
hopefully it'll be in good situation for me on Friday rather than you.
Might be a little bit of a different flavor than today, that's for sure. But look, we're here Monday morning. We're not usually so late and stressing Corey and Johnny, but it's worth it. We wanted to wait for our guy. Look, tough loss yesterday, but a great performance, I feel, against a pretty formidable opponent at the moment. With we saw Gino Crandell, Mo Walker back as well. But look, despite the loss, lots of positives for this playoff hunt. How would you evaluate your first few weeks as the Giants head coach?
Up and down. It's been hard. It's been hard for everyone. It's been hard on us as coaching staff. It's been hard on the players, as a collective. Obviously, the players went through upheaval of changing coach, then having Pluto as an interim coach, then having me. Everybody's got their own little ideas of how things should be done. And then, what I found is, obviously we're in the middle of a season. So we had sort of 5 days practice before our first game, and then the first 3 games we weren't able to practice in between, which was, really hard. It was a lot of video work, a lot of walkthroughs, but without kind of putting stuff on the floor and being able to practice in between, adjustments were hard. So I felt this weekend, as you said, better performance against Leicester for sure. I felt the extra week of practice helped us. Hopefully another week of practice will help us before the next game. But, bottom line is we still lost, even though we performed better. And that's why we're here, is to win. So we want to start, I think what we can control is the performance, but we want to start turning the performance into wins. And then again, playoffs are the playoffs. We've got to perform better to win games. If we win games, we've got a chance of making the playoffs. So, first things first for me, we got to really practice and get better, which in the middle of a season isn't really kind of the best thing, what the players want to hear a lot of the time. We need to go really hard in practice all the time. Usually at this point, they're kind of easing up and relaxing and kind of looking after their bodies a lot more than we've been able to do with them. So it's been hard on everyone, but players have been great. Management's been great. Everything's been good so far.
That's good, and we'll come back around to Giants talk, especially this playoff run, and really intrigued to kind of deep dive a little bit more on what you're saying about the difficulties. But let's track back slightly for the listeners unfamiliar with your past. Can you give us a quick synopsis of where you've been and kind of what you have achieved? So literally anyone who doesn't listen to Hoops Fix, really, because they did a great job and you came on and spoke really well. So just a quick synopsis for us, and maybe now we can signpost them to a longer version.
Yeah, so I played. Mansour Ahmed did a great job of embarrassing me on Twitter recently, putting up a picture of when I was, really young. So I used to play. I spent time on the end of the bench for Leopards and Towers, as in my kind of youth. I went to the US, and then when I came back, I kind of started to transition into coaching. My first foray into that was at Reading Rockets, where I played, and then I moved to Barking Abbey to work with Mark Clark, who I'd known since I was young. So I was at Barking Abbey Academy for 13 years. So for those that don't know, it is a junior program. It's based at a school where a lot of young talent would go to the school to study, and then also to get an increased provision of basketball. So we were lucky. We had a lot of players came through the academy structure, a lot of guys in the BBL now. They came through it, guys like Teddy Okafor, Jesse Chukwu from last year, Raphael Thomas Edwards at Bristol. Trying to think, Joe Ickenwin was part of our first ever group as well. So a number of guys in the BBL, a lot of guys that kind of play abroad now as well. And I was there for 13 years with Mark, with a kind of couple of other coaches as well. That came and went, and then James Veer, who's another great coach at the moment, kind of leading up the Barking program. I then left that to take the job at London City Royals. So Barking was great for me. I really enjoyed it. I loved my time there. There was no negatives. I just felt like it was a good kind of step to take the Royals job. Felt if I didn't take that job when it was offered, I'd be at Barking forevermore. So yeah, I took the job, and I was there for a short-lived time before kind of, had almost a sabbatical for a period there in between. I worked with back in the academy structure, but the pandemic again meant there was very little going on. And then obviously the Giants opportunity came up, so I've taken that.
Well, Coach, speaking of your past, one thing that you didn't mention, I read that you have been a play-by-play and color commentary for many European teams since 2006. My question to you is, have you and our Sky Sports man, Mr. Routledge, ever teamed up on a telecast?
No, we haven't. And that is, no, I've never done it with Dan. So, I've been really lucky that I've done a lot of European events. And usually you'd get paired with a commentator, but no, I've never been with Dan. So life goal, still on the bucket list. I'll get there one day to do something.
Dan's a big fan of the show. Often steals a lot of our statistics. So we'll have a word with him. Even more impressive is that's the first time in 30 episodes that Drew has got Dan's name right as well. So you're a good omen for Drew right now.
I'm getting better. That way. I'm getting better.
So look, I'm interested in your London City Royals experience. So it was such an exciting prospect. You at the helm, a well-balanced team led by Andrew Lawrence. I saw your early games, was really impressed. But obviously, little did we all know that behind the scenes, that eroded very, very quickly. Like, what were your feelings? Because did you see sort of come into the BBL as a much-needed step, or did you know going into it that it was kind of a risk?
I think I knew it was a risk, perhaps not in the risk it was, to be honest. My biggest thing was, at Barking, I had stability in a job. I have a family, there's stability there. We used to say to the players, like, if we lost 3 games, we wouldn't be getting fired. We're not in the NCAA, we're not in professional basketball. Whereas that was my worry. You go into professional basketball and you get judged on wins and losses. So, my worry was if I was to leave a really stable job at Barking, what would happen if Royals didn't go as well as I expected? So that was my worry, of the stability more than anything else. And it was frustrating that, as a collective, as a group, we felt, we were on track. We really were confident. When we had everybody playing, when we had the twins, everybody, we lost one game and Andrew was injured for that one game against Lions at the Copper Box. So, that was a frustrating side of it, that we as the players felt that we were doing our part, that we were performing on the floor, that we turned up every day, and it was just, frustration is the only way to put it, that it wasn't able to work out really.
Yeah. When did it kind of start to become obvious that this was quite a bad situation? Because obviously coming in, they had the great kind of first season, and then going into that second season, I think what they were looking from you was real stability. I saw that move as something where they were going to try and invest in a coach for a long time. When did you start to notice that maybe the wheels were falling off behind the scenes?
Just before Christmas, probably. There was issues. The players were aware, and I think that the experience brought our group pretty close together. We played Plymouth last week. I got to catch up with Andrew and Will Neighbour and LVC, and it was really nice to see them again. I've got to say, we had a good group of people together, and I think the players looked after each other really well. The players did things that helped the players. I said, all the way through. So Matt Scott, he had, in one of the last games, he had a big game against Surrey where he had 42. Well,
yeah, I remember that.
He only played in that game because I literally, the day before, I begged him to play because we didn't have enough players if he didn't play in the game. Right. Before that, he wasn't going to play because he hadn't been paid. So, right. The day before, I said to him, look, if you don't play, we can't play the game. And if we can't play the game, that's the end of the club. Like, everybody else is going to lose their job. So, he sacrificed for the team. He was like, okay, I'll do it just so everybody else can keep playing. Wow. Obviously, he had a huge game. We won. And I think that, so as bad as it was at times, the players were and the characters, the people there were really good. We looked after each other. And I think we're pretty close because of that. I still speak to, a lot of the guys off the floor. So, yeah, it was a worry for a while, but, like I say, it was enjoyable at the same time in the relationships there.
Yeah, and obviously, like, a little bit of a fun factor to it, the Lavrinovich twins. How did you kind of feel about that situation? Because as a former coach, there's just something about that would have kind of driven me crazy, because they had their eyes on other situations as well as being with you. How was it? Did it go smooth behind the scenes, or?
They were awesome, absolutely fantastic. I mean, obviously they're coming to their end of the career, but the level that they'd both played at, they are uber professional. So, I can't knock them in any way. They were there. Whenever they were there, they were fully on board. They were completely bought into it, as competitive and as passionate as anyone. You know, they weren't there as a kind of anything other than basketball players. Like absolutely, like they were locked into everything we did. So yeah, no, I don't have any
celebrities, man.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think that the other thing is that the ego of it as well. So they'd come, you know, having played at Real Madrid, and at times, you know, we're doing scout reports like on the side of a court with a computer, you know, things like that. And I'm thinking, I was like, this is how it is at Real Madrid, right? And they would just laugh and get on with it. But like I say, no egos. Every day they were there to work. Every day, yeah, they came ready to play. So yeah, true professionals, great guys as well.
Is it true that they were flying in on Thursdays and staying through the weekend and then heading back home?
Yeah. I mean, they're older than me, the pair of them. So like they can't practice every day. So the reality was, it was, you know, we were picking and choosing when they were able to practice. So, you know, with all their other commitments, it made it easier for them to just come in, do the practices before the games and then play, rather than be there for the whole week and just sit and watch anyway. And that's what I say, like, you know, they would know the playbook better than the guys who were there every day. So, yeah, even with that situation, I had no problems with it.
So Monday, Wednesday, cardboard cutouts of both of them, just you sliding them around into their sets. Is that what it was?
Yeah. And again, like I say, they would come in, they would be, they would know everything. Like, yep. And you'd look at them like, you sure you got it? Yeah, no problem. And they would execute everything perfectly. They had no scout reports better than the guys who were there all week. They had no strategy, everything. So yeah, I think with other people it wouldn't have worked. That's for sure. But with those two, it did. And again, like obviously I did background on them, and you can't find anyone that will speak bad about either of the twins. Like it's impossible to find people who either Lithuanian or abroad who have anything bad to say about them. So yeah, no, they were great.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of Andrew Lawrence, you know, he's been riddled by hamstring injuries over the last 2 seasons, and us as a league, we haven't really been able to see his value. And you kind of mentioned earlier about a lot of those guys that you coached at the youth level or here in the BBL, and you're seeing more of those guys come back to the BBL, like Ashley Hamilton and Teddy. You know, when healthy, what does his presence bring to the British Basketball League and other guys who decide to stay here in the league?
I think it brings a lot. I think, you know, the more of the high level British guys we have here, the better. And for a long time, I think, you know, there's no, that's not rocket science. Like everybody knows that. I think we've got to have, you know, the more career BBL players would be great for the league. You know, guys like yourself really now, you know, Gareth Murray's of this world, Kieran Achara's, people like that, you know, Darius Defoe's. I think they're great for the league, people who can make a career playing in the UK. You know, Andrew specifically, like, yeah, it's been a bad time for him with injuries for sure. You know, I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's, you know, if he played a full season, he'd be up there as MVP candidate without a doubt in my mind. Like he's that caliber of player. I think, you know, decision making and pick and roll, you know, his skill set offensively is, you know, is really good. So yeah, Brexit will be interesting as well to see how that affects things. I think it's still got to shake out a lot, but hopefully I think there's a big opportunity for British basketball for the BBL. With that, I think we can get players back, and you know the challenge is for the BBL as a whole to be ready and able to accommodate those players as well. I think that's the next challenge, because what we should be seeing is some of, you know, can we improve the league rather than kind of make the league stay where it is and actually do it at the cost of some players who probably should stay in the BBL anyway. So can we add it? You know, can we get better? That's the challenge for the league off the floor in the next couple of years for me.
I love that. So, you know, let's get back to this Giants project. You know, how did this option actually come about? You know, we've had Jamie Edwards here on the show earlier. He has a vision. Early on, that looked very promising. That started to fall away, sadly. What were your early conversations like with him, and what really appealed to you?
Yeah, I think again, it's nothing that I'm sure a lot of people don't say. Manchester is a huge city. There's a lot of opportunity here. It's a program and a place that should have a big basketball franchise. There's no doubt in that. The Giants obviously used to be a huge franchise, and in recent years they just haven't been. They haven't been on the landscape really of the BBL. I think what Jamie's been able to do in his short time, and what the kind of the leadership here, the club is on really firm footing, it appears, in my short time here off the floor. They've done a really good job of kind of getting everything set up, the way the players are looked after. Still improvements to be made, but I think that side of things has been really good. I think the thing that's missing right now is the playing side. The team, forget what we're at, like we're outside of the playoffs again, and the fans here, it's hard to generate interest. It's hard to be a big club if you're not winning. So I think that that's the next step for the club is now everything off the floor has been done pretty well. Hopefully that continues to grow and get better, and then to try and make it a more competitive team, week in, week out, really.
Yeah, we kind of talked about the difficulties that you're under at the start. Taking over a new team is hard at the best of times. As a former coach, I did it taking over at pre-season where I already had somebody else's players, but that did give me enough time to kind of make changes if I needed. For you, well over halfway, no moves available. So even if you wanted to, how do you sort of navigate that transition? Do you just kind of accept that and move into it just wholeheartedly, or is there a little bit of you that just wishes if you could have added a few more complementary pieces, what this team could be?
I think you'll always look at, well, if we had this, or if I could do that. But, reality is when I took the job, I knew this was the situation. So it's not something I came into not knowing. Like I said, that the hardest thing has been, navigating it being in the season, the lack of practice time, and then also, I don't want to give Drew too much of a scouting report, but obviously it's little things. It's that there's a system of play, there's sets, they're already in place. It's, so the question is, well, do you get rid of those and bring in your new sets and new offenses? Well, if you do that, well, how many can the players learn with 5 practices before the next game? So do you cut the playbook right down? Do you add to it? Do you keep running the old plays? Do you change this? Do you change that? Pick and roll coverage, what do you do now? Is it different? Or if you're bringing in something new that the players haven't done, then they're trying to learn it during the games, which can be difficult. So, I was thinking about it. I think we've had 12 practices. Well, most pre-seasons you'd have way more than 12 practices before your first game. So, that side of things is positive with what we've done, I think, during that time. But and again, we've been in a run of games. Plymouth, Leicester, Newcastle back to back is not easy. So, I think we're getting there. I think the players, hopefully, they've been taking a lot on board and they've done pretty well with it. And hopefully, we just keep going. The trouble is we got 6 games. I would have hoped it was 16 or 60, to be honest. I feel like if we had that time, we could be a lot better.
Yeah, it's just listening to you, explain those scenarios, it seems like a lose-lose situation almost. And just to put it in perspective for our listeners, here at Newcastle, we had 6 weeks of preseason before we played our first preseason game against Sheffield. So tough cards you've been dealt, but that's professional sports.
Yeah, and it's not me moaning. Like I said, it's the reality of what I had. So we're trying to do our best, and in many ways, it's hard for the players because I'll get frustrated that they're not picking stuff up quickly, but we're trying to teach them new offenses, new defenses, new positions, new terminology, everything. And then they've still got the old stuff swimming around in their head as well. Yeah. So we've tried to make some tweaks rather than wholesale changes. Especially for that first game, there was bits we kept, there was bits we'd kind of brought in fresh, and, we're constantly changing. The one positive is it kind of makes us a hard scout because like every week we're putting in new stuff. And I think we benefited from that yesterday against Leicester as well. So, that's a positive, but yeah, many complications.
Yeah, for sure. And how have the players kind of taken to that? Because like you said, I think that's a really good explanation. I actually had a question for it about implementing your style, and having to do it. You've got this difficult balancing act because, like you said, you don't really have enough games to, be experimenting here and there. But at the same time, if you go in and just make wholesale changes, it could completely throw at everybody's balance. So how have the players been? And do you think that they see the bigger vision and what Coach Gardner wants on the floor, or is that going to take even more time?
I think they're getting there. I think there's still, little bits of execution that we need to do better, and it's not their fault that we're not very good at it yet. Like, that's a reality. Again, it was stuff that we put on the floor to play Leicester, which we did. We just didn't do it as well as I would have wanted. But in many ways, that's not their fault. They kind of learned the whole concept and practiced it a couple of times before the game. The fact that they don't know it amazingly well yet, we can't blame them for that. I think the other thing that's really hard on the players is, as a coach, you always have visions within your mind, but the players have the opportunity to change it, subbing patterns. And again, like, some guys will be far better in practice than they are in a game, or far better in a game than they are in practice. And sometimes you look at somebody in practice and you think, well, I'm not sure, don't know how they fit with this, don't know how they do with that. And actually within a game over the course of a season, they're able to win you around and show you the positives that they can bring. Whereas, right now, sometimes I feel like, I don't have the time to experiment and look at different lineups and do things like that when we're in such a short period and a bit of pressure of trying to perform as well. So some of the players probably have missed out on that opportunity, which is tough on them as well.
Absolutely. The tough decisions you got to make as a coach. But let's talk playoffs. So we have an exciting new format that I think the fans will enjoy. But let's talk in particular the Giants playoff push. Currently 4 more losses than the Bristol Flyers. And as you mentioned, you got 6 tough games coming up against Eagles, Sharks, and Rocks, and then 2 must-wins against Scorchers and Flyers, and then a season finale against the London Lions. Realistically, are you guys trying to make a push, or is it more about just building for the future?
I think anytime we're still able to do it, we're trying to make the playoffs. Like, that's got to be our mindset. I think the reality is twofold. Not, like I said, the only thing we can really control is our performances. Try and make them better and see if we can win enough games. And really, Bristol, like, Andreas is a good friend of mine. We work together on national teams. Like, we just need him to lose him and Creon to lose some games. Basically, that's the reality. If they both play well, then it's hard for us. It's hard. That's why you didn't help us yesterday.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, every time
Drew.
Every time Bristol win at the moment, it's a dagger to the heart. Every time Scorchers win, it's a dagger to the heart. So, that's the reality. The situation we're in is we're rooting for them to lose, and they're probably doing the same for us. But that's outside of our control. We got to play better, try and win, and then see if that's enough. Like, if we win out, will that be enough? I don't know. I don't know if it will. It depends on what Bristol and Surrey do. So all we can control is playing better and trying to win some games.
Yeah, and it's all about just making it in, because I feel like for the first time in my career in the BBL, there's a legitimate chance for 8 teams to win the playoffs. So how important do you think it's for our league to have that type of parity? Because usually in the past it's just been like a 2 or 3 horse race when it comes to the playoffs.
I think I don't know if it, and I don't know why. You look at this year, like a lot of teams are really up and down. You'll get teams who go on a 3-game win streak and look fantastic, and you're like, wow. And then all of a sudden, and sometimes it's injury related, sometimes it's various factors, but and then all of a sudden they'll drop off a cliff, and then somebody else is on a big roll. That it feels, and I don't know whether this is true, it feels to me that's more this year than it has been in the past. Like, so that's for sure. It's dangerous for the teams at the top and going into the playoffs. And I think, again, like, there's a lot of change there. Obviously, we played Riders yesterday. Rob was saying that, feels it's been a long season, which is interesting, even though it hasn't. And, Riders are a case in point. They've got new guys, all these guys coming back. They were playing pretty well by the one game without them. So now they've got to integrate new guys in. Obviously, Plymouth are now at the point they're integrating their guys who have been injured back into the lineups as well. So they're not kind of settled, those teams towards the top of the league. So sometimes when you're not settled, it gives an opportunity for the lower placed teams for sure. And some of those teams are playing well, like Bristol and Surrey. They're both playing well at the moment. They're getting wins. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for sure.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully, we're coming towards the end of this pandemic and we can kind of move forward. Do you think that the parity in the league has been related to the pandemic and the lack of sort of that home and away advantage, or do you think that this is starting to become the new norm for the BBL, and this is something exciting really for European leagues looking on the inside out, that actually are middle string teams are starting to really blossom. Those bottom league teams are starting to make better structural decisions and moving up through the league, or is it just pandemic? What do you think?
I really don't know, to be honest. I don't. Some of me says, yeah, it's the pandemic. It has to be, because it's not usually like this. And again, the runs that teams have been on, good and bad, are really strange. And the pandemic, it's hard to deal with. Not just the no fans, but on a day-to-day basis, like the players, especially if you're a foreign player, you're over here, you can't really go out, you can't really do anything. Like, it's hard for players, especially the overseas-based ones. So, that side of me says, yeah, it's probably more pandemic-based. But then the other part of it is, yeah, the teams are better. You look at, Bristol as a case in point. Like, they've got 2 GB internationals in their backcourt. Like, they've got great teams right down the bottom of the league. Really good players. So I think there is probably more parity as well. So maybe it's a combination of both factors.
Yeah, and I think the pandemic plays a small role in the point of the pandemic has allowed those bottom teams to get better talent. So, which is great for the league. I've always said that, even during the times when it was just the Newcastle Eagles and Leicester Riders, 2-horse race, I always said that the league is only going to be as good as as its weakest link, and we need all the teams to be able to be competitive. And I think we're getting to that point. So, it's exciting for the future of the BBL. But before we let you go, I'm curious to get your take on the pecking order as far as trophy value. This has been talked about on social media, valuing the Cup, Trophy, League, and playoffs. I want you to rank them 1 through 4 of most importance.
Oh, I'm going to go for me. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah, league
number 1.
Okay.
I'm a league guy. Yeah. I think playoffs number 2, and then I'll put trophy and cup together number 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Fair enough. I'll probably go the same way. I think that's good. Yeah. But hey, Coach, listen, I appreciate you giving us the time. We know this was a small window for us, so we really appreciate being able to get you on. We're rooting for you, that's for sure. Thanks for giving the listeners a small taste of who you are. Remember, Hoops Fix, we're giving you some love here. Go and listen to Coach Gardner's story. Good luck for this playoff push, and we'll hopefully be speaking to you over that period of time.
That's great. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem. See you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Great guest as always right there, Mr. Lasker. Now we are on to the hot topic this week. It's a catch up on MVP talk. It's ready to go. We first visited this with the Duke and Duchess of High Tea Hoops. The aim of today is to come up with our joint top 5 contenders as we currently sit at this point of the season. We'll review whose stock has dropped and whose has risen. The 4 previously mentioned were DeAndre Liggins' London Lions, Lyle Hexam, who has now departed the Manchester Giants, Plymouth Raiders' Ashley Hamilton, and Newcastle Eagles' Justin Gordon. Obviously, Hexam off the table, Mr. Lasker. Any of those guys you see as stock dropped?
Yeah, well, it's interesting how the MVP landscape has changed in the last couple of months. And from that 4 that we mentioned there with High Tea Hoops, I think I would have to drop 3 of the 4. I would keep Liggins in there. but I would drop Hexum, Ashley Hamilton, and Justin Gordon. Hexum for obvious reasons, because he's no longer part of the British Basketball League. But Hamilton and Gordon, simply just due to injuries. They missed quite a bit of time. Both of them missed about 4 weeks. And when we're talking about MVP, availability is the best availability when it comes to value. And then when it comes to the MVP talk, that's just as important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like I said, Hexham for obvious reasons. I do think Hamilton and Gordon in slightly different situations. So for me, Justin Gordon out injured, that obviously affected you guys greatly. You're happy to see him come back. It's going to take him a while to get back to the levels that he was, but a much needed piece for Raiders. The way that I'm seeing it currently at the minute is that Hamilton is coming back and he's going to have to now reintegrate with arguably some better pieces that have gotten better since he's gone out, aka Ricky McGill as a prime example. Will Neighbor is back to playing, giving us the performances that we're used to. So that might take away a little bit of that MVP run for Ashley Hamilton. What I will say about Hamilton though is I'm sure he's much more of a team guy and would want to have a run at this league and have a run at the playoffs rather than win MVP. If you had to ask him to choose, that is. Who would you add then in as stock risen since we've last talked?
Yeah, well, the three guys I have in mind, they have just lifted their game tremendously since the last time we had this conversation. And just like our player of the week nominees, one ingredient you got to have, and it's got to be winning. And these three names that I'm about to mention has their teams in the top four right now, and mostly for the entire year. And you got to go with General Gino. I just feel like he's just really uplifted his game and just been an integral piece. Leicester's won many close games this year, and a lot of that has to do with Gino having the ball in his hands and making plays. Next, I got Ramon Fletcher on there. Probably should have been in there in the first time around we had this conversation. We dropped the ball on there, but statistically, he's top in many categories and been kind of leading the ship. Hasn't missed any game, hasn't missed a practice all season. And then Ricky McGill. I mean, he has been phenomenal. We were having a conversation about would they be changes with Plymouth, with coaching and players and all this. And now I think it's safe to say that PJ's job is safe, and those players' jobs are safe. They've been playing phenomenal, and a lot of that has to do with Ricky McGill finding his feet and playing at an MVP level, as you saw there in the trophy finals. And he's had multiple games with 30. So Gino, Fletch, and McGill are the three I would substitute Hamilton, Gordon, and Hexham out with.
Totally agree. Obviously, General Gino, good to see him back last night in action, but out with a little bit of an injury. What's different with that compared to Gordon and Hamilton? Just time off the floor?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't missed much. I mean, I think he missed 2 or 3 games. I mean, he's only been out a week or two, whereas those guys missed a little bit over a month. So had Gino been out for the rest of the season like we initially thought, I think we might have to have a different conversation here. But since he was in the lineup against Manchester on Sunday afternoon, and even though statistically he didn't put up his normal stats, but it's, that's expected when you come back from injury. But just him back in the lineup secures that place for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the game, I think Coach Rob was really, really strategic with how he was using both the general and Mo Walker as well. So it's really interesting. He started Gino for like 30 seconds and then brought him out. And I thought I'd love to just ask him this question, but what I imagine it is that he's trying to get that starting mentality into Gino again and getting Connor used to coming off the bench again. That's what it looked like. If I've guessed right, awesome. And then just really managing both those guys' minutes and sort of the times that they were coming into the game. So wouldn't read too much into that, but I'll just be interested to see going into this playoffs how much his hand does bother him. But even as we sit right now, I think he would still be in the conversation even if he was out for the season. That's the impact I think he's had, and he's gotten a lot better with it. McGill's the same as well. He's gotten better. Fletch is Fletch, like he just his levels never drop, and I think that's why everybody around the league talks about him in such high regard. I would add two other pieces in there. Just because of, I think the reason why he's not talked about more is because of Liggins, but I would go Dirk Williams at London, putting up some, phenomenal numbers. The difference maker between him and Liggins is Dirk is there to be an out and out scorer. He doesn't have to worry about adding too much else. We know that in our conversation with him, he's trying to really lock in defensively as well, which you can see. You can see the effect that Liggins has had on him there. But he's an out-and-out scorer, whereas Liggins is doing a bit of everything, and I think that just stands out more. And Caron Ross at Cheshire Phoenix, arguably has raised his game continuously through the season as well. Cheshire had that great run. Can we attribute that to the NBA effect? Does that take a little bit of shine off Caron? But I think if you asked within the Phoenix camp, they would expect him to be in the MVP conversation also. Okay, let's try and put together a joint five. Okay. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing we're locking in DeAndre Liggins since he's staying on both our lists. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't speak on Liggins, but he's top 10. Statistically, he's not really blowing you away, but he's top 10 in steals, and it's just more about his presence, because I think it's very clear that without DeAndre Liggins, to me, I think the London Lions are slightly above average. And I think that's pretty obvious. And, you saw that in the trophy final. He just had a stamp all over that game, obviously came away with the MVP, so London has a trophy in the bag. So I think with that, we have to stick him in there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a basketball purist, I think, to understand what it is about what Liggins is doing, be it representing in all statistical categories. Arguably coming over from the NBA, people may have expected him to try and dominate in a completely different way. And in my opinion, it seems like he's here for a couple of years. I think he's making his teammates better around him as well. Like you said, I think he's getting more out of those pieces that perhaps without him wouldn't be performing quite as well. Okay, I think to rectify our mistake from earlier in the when we revisited with the Dookie Hoops, we're going to put Ramon Fletcher back in where he belonged. Yes,
absolutely, no doubt about it. If you look at his statistics, he leads the league in scoring at 17.9 and assists at 9.5. And I'm interested to get Dan Routledge on this one. When was the last time anyone in the league led the league in scoring and assists? So that's a great trivia question for our listeners out there. And then also he leads the league in field goals made and top 10 in minutes average. So, and obviously he has a cup final trophy in his bag, and he's just Mr. Consistent. He doesn't miss time, like hasn't missed a game, hasn't missed a practice, like I mentioned before. And
Iron Man.
Sometimes it gets taken for granted that he just does the same old thing year in, year out. But like I mentioned on previous episodes, something has to be said about consistency because at the professional level, because it's not easy, so he's definitely stamped in that top 5.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I don't blame anybody but the Duke Hoops, just kidding. Okay, so now we're down to Hamilton and Gordon still in the conversation if we want them. General Gino, McGill, Dirk Williams, or Ross. I think the general has to go in here for me. I think that Coach Rob said it himself when he came onto the pod. He's got levels, he still hasn't reached his full potential, and he's just continued to get better. And in my point of view, both on and off the court, is a marketable big piece of the BBL that I'm praying is going to stick around again for at least another year. I don't know. I don't know many players that have really brought the entertainment value that he's brought, but actually substance to that as well. So not only is an entertainer, he's actually not all that of a frustrating entertainer. At the preseason, I thought maybe this is going to frustrate Coach Rob, but actually he really does have levels and steps it up when needed, as well as adding that little razzmatazz.
Yeah, and also he's a winner. I mean, I think it's safe to say that also, although Leicester Riders don't have a trophy yet, it's theirs to lose when it comes to the league. They've only lost 4 games, and the magic number is 3 for them. He's top 10 in scoring. He's second in the league in assists behind Fletcher, top 5 in steals. He also leads the league in free throw makes as he's a wizard at drawing fouls. He leads the league in that as well. So what can the guy not do? And he has to be in there. I mean, arguably, in my opinion, he's top of the leaderboard because of the simple fact of that Leicester may win the league. And there hasn't been a more important player for the Leicester Riders in the last 7-8 years than maybe Drew Sullivan. He won it a couple of maybe 2015, something like that. But usually Leicester Riders are known as like a great team. Yeah. And they're averaging 25 minutes across the board. But I think it's safe to say he's probably their best individual player in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And so that's locked us in with 3 players. So we got Liggins, we got Fletch, we got General. I'm kind of not that I'm not too fussed isn't the word for it, but I kind of happy with whatever we do with these picks now. So, pick one, Drew, throw one out there, and let's see what we got.
You give it to me, huh? Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. For me, I think we have to put Ricky McGill in there, and I can see where our listeners might want to argue that for the simple fact that his body of work, he hasn't played here the entire season. And when he got here, he got off to a slow start. Nothing statistically stands out as he's only really in the top 10 in assists, nothing else. But, the Plymouth Raiders as a team, missing Ashley Hamilton for all that time, they've only had 3 losses since January 20th. And those 3 losses have been to the Newcastle Eagles and twice to the London Lions. So since then, they've just been rolling. A lot of that has to do with Ricky McGill's play. So for me, I think we kind of have to squeeze him in there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, especially the last month and a half, he's been at MVP level. If he was like that for the whole time that he's come in, he'd arguably be up there in the conversation with Fletch and Gino, I think, just in terms of the way he's been playing lately. I get that. I think of all the picks we're going to make, that this one might be the most controversial, just because of statistically, it isn't necessarily about like you said, the main body of work that we're looking at. We're looking at as it stands right now. They are second place, which, why did I ever change them? I had that originally, and I think when we revisited, I moved them down a spot or 2.
You have little faith.
Just that's the only thing this season that you can crucify me on with the Raiders. Everything else I've been relatively religious with.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'll agree. I think we throw Ricky in there, and I think there's still some stories to play out for him as well. So it'll be interesting to see that run in. I'll take that last 5th spot then and see if we can agree on it. It's tough for me because I still love and think that going into this playoffs, Justin Gordon is going to be still in and around that area. But like you said, through injuries, more than anything, I think Hamilton and Gordon's stock has dropped. Caron Ross has been amazing, and I'm sure we're going to hear from those Cheshire Phoenix conspiracy theories that mainly the NBA leads, by the way. He completely leads it out.
He's their biggest fan, that's for sure.
he totally gave it away that he wasn't listening to the show properly, because actually it was me that picked up on too many guards and led you in. I led you into the NBA.
You
pick.
gave me
So
you gave me a little
loop.
Fletcher dime.
Give me a little
Yeah,
loop.
you gave me a little Fletcher dime.
But yeah, that's right. You're getting a little bit older. No oop. Little bounce pass.
Yeah.
But so I think I'm going to go Dirk Williams as my final pick. There's a lot to like about what Dirk Williams is doing. You know, he said it at the start of the year that he wanted to show everybody how much better he's got. That shows me how hungry he's been that whole summer when he was getting ready for his Lions season, that he wanted to show that he had improved. I think he has a very, very rare skill set, which is being able to shoot that three at a high level whilst being an absolute skyscraper of an athlete.
Right.
I think that's so rare. You know, William Lee can stick the three and is a phenomenal athlete, but I think Williams is an elite 3-point shooter with elite athleticism. So that's really key. Loved when he came on the episode as well. You can feel how humble he is as an individual, how much he wants to work, and that might fly in the face of how people feel about the Lions. You know, like it feels to me that he's a very different kettle of fish in that particular market. So yeah, I'm going Dirk Williams on this pick. What do you think?
See, this last pick is very controversial. Like you talked about Ross, I think for me, he's just outside of it just because he's had a hot streak, not a hot season. And now he's injured. So I think that kind of erases him from the conversation. And for me, it's a toss-up between Dirk Williams and Cortez Edwards. And if you look at Cortez, he leads the league in steals. He's top 5 in assists, and he's top 10 in rebounds as a 2 guard. And again, Daniel, we're going to come back to you at the Sunday night breakdown is when's the last time that a 2 guard finished the season top 10 in rebounds. So he does a little bit of everything. And, you know, his game isn't very flashy. So a lot of times you look at the box score and you're always shocked, like, dang, he did this, he did that. Cause it doesn't really pop in a game, you know, like a Gino or Fletcher, but he gets it done. When I think about performances, he's been consistent all year. He's only had 2 bad games, and one of those games was most recently Sunday afternoon at Surrey, and then he had one other stinker early in the year. I can't remember, but so for me, it's a toss up between him and Dirk Williams. Dirk Williams is a great shout. If I can argue anything about Dirk, it's maybe because maybe he's just a little one-dimensional, and like you mentioned, maybe that's just because he's not asked to do anything else. But you know, I'd like to see him make a little bit more. I like him to kind of be more of a pest on the defensive end, which he says he's trying to add to his game. So you know, my question to you is if Dirk doesn't score 20, what value is he bringing to that London Lions team? So that's where I can kind of argue that. But for me, it's a toss-up between both of those guys.
So listen, I'm 40 today, and I write the rules anyway. So why don't we just have a 5, and then we'll have a 6th man as we pay ode to you know, a clear talent. I don't mind which one that is, Williams or Edwards. I'll let you choose it on the graphic, but let's take both. For the reason is that I think that giving you the reasons on Dirk, I think Cortez, like, I love Cortez Edwards, and like you said, it's not flashy. It's relatively under the radar. A lot of the stuff that he does, the things that do stand out of the games is just his phenomenal rebounding. Like, it's honestly ridiculous. You know, and these aren't little cheapies either. These are going up against other high quality bigs and
he's
saying
going and
thank you very
them.
much.
Yeah, snatching them.
So it, you know, there's no cheapies there with that side of things. And arguably both of them are the best Robins in the league, you know. So, you know, Fletch and Liggins doing their best Batman impression, and then you got Williams and Cortez arguably as important as each other. So let's put them both in, because I write the rules. That's our joint 5 with a 6th man.
Well, how about we do this? So since we're touring on that last 5th pick, our marketing team over at 5 or 6, Kieran Bird and Peter Simmons, we'll leave it up to those guys to decide which way we go. Number 5 and the 6th man. So, hey, Good luck with that, fellas.
Good luck, Pete and the team. Okay. So MVP watch is done, leading us into the playoffs. We'll revisit that at some point just before the playoffs. I think obviously the league title will be very important in that. That will probably go in General's favor, but I think we've picked a really strong 5 there. The guys that stocks have dropped have not been through performances. It's been through injury. So let's just make that really, really clear. We love all of those guys on the list. That's it for me. 30 episodes. That's just crazy to me to say. We appreciate the support so much. Don't forget to get involved on the Patreon. This week, we are releasing our plans for the league run-in and playoffs. We have a big one happening next week. That will be on our live, so just on our regular Facebook page. But after that, you will only be able to see these extras. And I guarantee you these extras are going to be hot.
We got some cool stuff coming.
We do indeed. You can only access them in our private Facebook community page that you can access for as little as £3 a month. Enjoy your week, everyone. Drew, lead us out.
Yeah, in the words of Jay-Z, 40s is the new 30 as you turn 40 today as we cap off episode 30. Happy birthday to your brother. We hope you have it. And by the way, we're recording this on Monday morning on his birthday when he should be out with his family. He's off work. He should be having a beverage, cake, all that good stuff. So he's showing his commitment to you guys. But everyone out there, have a great week. Everyone, we'll see you next week. Same place, same time. Do us a favor, just give us 5 seconds, go give us a rating wherever you get your pod, and we really appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you guys on the show.